She was just a cook in the Navy mess hall, serving stew and bread to her SEAL team. But when the base went silent and the team was ambushed, everything changed. Alone, armed with nothing but a broken watch, an empty wallet, and a kitchen knife, she had to decide: hide in the shadows or hunt the hunters. This is the night Mia Watson fought back. The mess hall was alive with noise. Metal trays clattered against the counters. Boots stamped against the concrete floor. Laughter bounced from wall to wall, rough and unpolished, the kind only soldiers could make after weeks of tension in the field. Mia Watson stood behind the counter, ladle in hand, serving bowl after bowl of steaming stew. The smell of cumin and onions filled the air. She had cooked this dish 100 times before, yet tonight it seemed to matter more. The men filed past her. Chief Donovan with his booming voice and restless energy. Briggs with his cocky grin, always asking for extra bread. Lee quiet and watchful, giving her a small nod as thanks before moving on. They were warriors, all of them. She was just the cook, but just didn't mean small. Not to Mia. Her father's old watch hung loose on her wrist. The glass was cracked, the hands frozen at 2:17. It hadn't worked in years, but she wore it every day. It was her reminder. Time breaks, but people move on. The team teased her sometimes. "Watson," Donovan said once, "you're the only reason we fight like hell out there. Gotta make it back for your stew." She laughed with them, but inside pride swelled. They didn't see her as a warrior, but she held their world together in small ways. That night felt ordinary. Too ordinary. The desert outside lay silent, heavy, like a road coated in dust where no wind dared to move. Normally the air buzzed with the sound of insects, the occasional bark of dogs from distant villages, the hum of a supply chopper. Tonight there was nothing, only silence. Mia noticed it first while chopping bread. Her hand froze mid-slice, knife balanced above the loaf. She glanced at the window. The horizon was dark, too still. The silence pressed against the glass like an invisible weight. She shook herself, setting the knife down. Maybe she was tired. Long hours did strange things to the mind. She forced a smile as Briggs cracked a joke at the table. She ladled more stew. Routine was her shield, but then the lights flickered just once. A sharp blink and then back again. The SEALs froze mid-laugh. Their instincts never missed small details. Donovan's head turned toward the door. Lee's hand slid toward his rifle. Mia gripped the ladle tighter. Her breath caught. She thought of the broken watch on her wrist. Time was supposed to stand still inside these walls. Safe, predictable. But the desert never stayed quiet for long. Somewhere beyond the wire, boots moved in the sand. The silence wasn't emptiness. It was the pause before a storm, and Mia Watson was about to be dragged from the kitchen into a fight she had never asked for. The rumble started faint, almost like thunder rolling far away. But there were no storms in this desert. Only men. Mia gripped the edge of the counter. The stew rippled in the pot. Metal spoons rattled against trays. Then the vibration grew stronger, shaking the windows in their frames. "Generator," Briggs muttered. But his voice lacked conviction. Donovan's eyes narrowed. He barked a short order, and 2 of his men slipped out the door with rifles raised. The rest moved with sudden precision, training settling over them like armor. Chairs scraped back, tables overturned for cover. Laughter was gone, replaced by silence sharp as broken glass. Mia stood frozen, ladle still in her hand. Her place was supposed to be here, safe behind counters and steam, but the air felt wrong. Her chest tightened. Lee glanced at her. "Watson, get down." She dropped, her knees slamming against the tile. The ladle clattered away, rolling into a shadow. Her father's broken watch slid down her wrist, cold against her palm. She clutched it hard like it might hold time still again. Outside, the sound grew louder. Boots, engines, voices carried on the wind. Guttural and unfamiliar. Then the first blast hit. The door blew inward with a roar, metal tearing from hinges. Fire flashed, smoke curling into the hall. Shrapnel whined through the air. Mia's ears rang. She hit the floor as trays and pots flew. The SEALs were already moving. Rifles cracked, bursts of fire lighting the haze. Donovan's voice cut through the chaos, steady and commanding. "Contact! Hold the line!" Figures stormed through the smoke. Masked, rifles ready, their boots pounding against the tiles. The mess hall became a battlefield. Mia pressed herself against the counter. Her breath came shallow, her lungs refusing air. Her hands shook so badly she thought she'd shatter apart. She reached blindly, fingers closing around something cold. Her kitchen knife. Pathetic against rifles, but it was all she had. Gunfire rattled the walls. Plates shattered like glass rain. Smoke burned her throat. Through the haze she saw Donovan fall. A rifle butt slammed into his head and he collapsed hard. Briggs roared, charging, only to be thrown down under a wave of attackers. Lee fired until his rifle clicked empty. Then a boot smashed against his ribs. Her team, her family, was being swallowed. Mia's heart slammed. She wanted to scream, to leap out, to fight. But she stayed frozen, crouched in the shadow of her own kitchen. One of the masked men turned, eyes sharp behind the cloth. He saw her. Her breath stopped. The broken watch slid down her wrist, catching the light. She gripped the knife tighter, her knuckles white. The man stepped toward her. The muzzle of the rifle glared at her like an unblinking eye. Mia couldn't breathe. The air smelled of smoke and blood. Her knife shook in her hand. It looked like a toy against the black metal barrel. The man shouted in a language she didn't know. His voice was harsh, guttural. He stepped closer. Her pulse thundered in her ears. Then Briggs tackled him from the side. Both men crashed into the overturned table, plates exploding around them. The gun went off, deafening. Sparks jumped from the wall. Mia flinched. Hands clamped over her ears. When she opened her eyes, Briggs was on the floor. Blood pooled beneath his arm. The masked man rose again, weapon ready. Donovan tried to rise, but a rifle butt struck his skull. He slumped unconscious. Lee struggled, coughing through the smoke, before being pinned by two attackers. It was over. The SEALs were dragged to their knees, bound with coarse rope. Their faces bruised, their weapons stripped away. Mia stayed hidden behind the counter, the knife slipping from her hand. She wanted to cry out, to fight, but her throat locked. She had never felt so small. Her broken watch ticked nothing, frozen at 2:17, pressing against her skin like a reminder of everything she couldn't change. The fighters barked orders. They shoved the SEALs toward the door. Boots pounded against the tiles, fading into the night. Then silence, only smoke, broken glass, and Mia. Her chest heaved. She crawled forward on shaky hands, staring at the wreckage. Donovan's voice still echoed in her ears. Briggs's laugh. Lee's quiet nods. All dragged away, her team. Her family gone. She stumbled to the doorway. Outside, the desert stretched endless and black. Tire tracks carved across the sand like scars. She dropped to her knees, clutching her arms tight around herself. She whispered to the empty night, "Come back." But the only answer was silence. Her hands brushed the dirt. She found a small object, half buried. Lee's wallet, empty, abandoned. She held it tight, the leather warm from the ground. Another reminder. The convoy was gone. The SEALs were prisoners. And Mia Watson, the cook, was the only one left. The base was silent. Not silent like safety, but silent like death. Mia moved through the ruins with numb steps. Tables overturned. Shell casings littered the floor. Blood dried dark against the walls. She searched desperately. Radios. Empty. Static hissed in her ear, no voice answering. Vehicles. Burned husks, except one Humvee half hidden in shadow. Miraculously intact. She found weapons in the armory, an M4 scratched but loaded. 2 extra magazines, a combat knife heavier than her kitchen blade. She strapped it to her belt with trembling hands. In the supply shed she gathered water, a flashlight, 3 MREs. She packed them into a rucksack. Each item heavy with meaning. Every choice could mean life or death. Finally she returned to the mess hall. The pot of stew still simmered faintly, as if mocking her. She poured herself a bowl, sat among shattered glass, and ate in silence. The taste was hollow, but it grounded her. She was alive. Her father's words came back, every cog matters, even the smallest one. But what happens when the wrench is the only thing left? Tears burned her eyes. She buried her face in her hands, sobbing into the smoke and dust. For Briggs, for Donovan, for Lee, for herself. When the tears stopped, she stood. She wrote a note in her notebook, tore the page and pinned it to the wall with a knife, team taken. Heading after them. Mia Watson. She slung the rifle across her shoulder, adjusted her pack and stepped into the night. The desert wind cut sharp against her cheeks. The convoy's tire tracks shone pale under the moon. They pulled her forward like a rope she couldn't resist. Each step was heavy, but each step was hers. She whispered into the dark, "Don't quit." Not now. The broken watch dug against her wrist. Time was gone, but she was still moving. The fires burned low. Shadows moved around them. Armed men, a dozen, maybe more. Mia flattened against the sand, crawling on elbows and knees. Grit tore her skin, but she kept going. Inch by inch, she peered over a ridge. The camp spread below, trucks forming a rough circle, men clustered around fires. And in the center, three figures bound and kneeling,